The world tilted, not metaphorically, but physically. The suburban kitchen, usually the picture of quiet, sunlit order, seemed to spin around me. My hands, gripping the phone like a lifeline, trembled so violently I had to brace myself against the cool granite counter. 18 years. 18 years of building a life, brick by brick, memory by memory, lay shattered in the glowing rectangle in my hand. The email chain wasn't subtle. Flights booked to Miami, hotel confirmations for a shared room, affectionate messages that went far beyond friendship, spanning months. Months of a secret life lived right under my nose, while I was busy working late, fixing a leaky faucet or helping Liam with his math homework. Sarah, my wife, the mother of my children, engaged in a long-term affair with someone named Mark. The air in our Indianapolis home, usually smelling faintly of coffee and whatever Chloe had been baking, now felt thick with the stench of betrayal. It was a smell I hadn't known existed until this moment, a metallic, acrid odor that caught in my throat. I scrolled back numbly through the messages, the planning, the anticipation, the casual mentions of business trips that now took on a sickening new meaning. They talked about me too, often dismissively. Little jabs at my routine, my quiet nature, the life we had built together. It wasn't just cheating, it was a complete dismantling of my reality. A cruel joke played on the man who thought his biggest worry was the rising cost of college tuition. I remember the silence that followed the initial shock. A profound, deafening silence, in a house usually filled with the sounds of kids, the humming of appliances, the comfortable rhythm of shared existence. It was the sound of my marriage dying. I stood there for what felt like an eternity. The phone still clutched tight, the images burned into my mind. The comfortable suburban life we'd built on Briarwood Lane, the backyard where the kids played, the living room where we watched movies. It all felt like a stage set, the backdrop for a performance I hadn't known I was part of. When Sarah came home an hour later, keys jingling in the lock, calling out a cheerful "I'm back," the sound was like a physical blow. The contrast between her apparent normalcy and the devastation I held in my hand was unbearable. I met her in the hallway, the phone still displayed, the incriminating emails glaring. Her smile faltered. Her eyes, which I had looked into with love for nearly 2 decades, flickered with something I couldn't immediately identify. Was it guilt, fear, or just annoyance at being caught? "What's this, Ethan?" she asked, her voice surprisingly steady, though a faint flush crept up her neck. I held the phone out, my voice a low, shaky growl I barely recognized. This is everything, Sarah. This is Miami. This is Mark. This is you lying to me for months. The calmness vanished instantly, replaced by a defensive wall. "Where did you get my phone? You went through my phone." The accusation hung in the air, a classic deflection. Blame the person who discovered the secret, not the one who kept it. "That's what you focus on?" My voice rose, cracking. "Not the fact that you've been having an affair." What followed was a blur of gaslighting and blame-shifting. Tears, yes, but not tears of remorse for the betrayal. Tears of frustration at being caught. Accusations that I was distant, that I didn't understand her, that the marriage was already dead anyway, that I had driven her to it. Every word was a twist of the knife, designed to make me doubt my sanity, to make me question if I was somehow responsible for her choices. The woman I had loved, cherished and built a life with, transformed before my eyes into a stranger, a manipulator, a master of deceit. She didn't apologize for the affair, not really. She apologized for me finding out, for the inconvenience it caused her. She spoke of Mark, not with regret, but with a strange mix of defiance and longing. It became clear very quickly that this wasn't a mistake. It was a choice, a deliberate path she had taken. The days and weeks that followed were the darkest of my life. The house felt haunted. Every corner, every shared object whispered reminders of the lies. The bed felt cold and empty, a stark contrast to the images of hotel rooms in Miami. Sleep was a luxury I couldn't afford, my mind replaying conversations, searching for clues I had missed, signs I had ignored. The gaslighting continued, subtle and insidious. She would act as if nothing had happened, then lash out when I brought up the affair, accusing me of dwelling on the past, of being controlling, of ruining her chance at happiness. I tried, initially, to understand, to see if there was anything left to salvage. We had children, a history, a comfortable life. The thought of dismantling it all was terrifying. I suggested counselling, talking things through, trying to find a way forward. Her response was always vague, dismissive. I can't think about that right now, or what would counselling even do? It became painfully clear that she had no interest in repairing the marriage. She was only interested in managing the fallout in a way that minimised the disruption to her own plans. She wanted the security of the marriage without the commitment, the freedom of the affair without the consequences. I spiralled, lost weight, felt a constant knot in my stomach. My work suffered. I was a ghost in my own life, trapped in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. The suburban streets of Indianapolis, once familiar and comforting, felt isolating. The neighbours walking their dogs, the kids riding bikes, they were living in a world that felt impossibly far from my own, a world where relationships weren't built on elaborate lies. Current part characters, 392, total characters, 1,392. One evening, I called David, my best friend since college. He lived across town, a no-nonsense guy who had been through his own share of relationship drama. I poured out the whole story, the discovery, the gaslighting, the agonizing limbo. He listened patiently, quietly. When I was done, there was a long pause. "Ethan," he said, his voice soft but firm, "what are you doing?" I stammered something about trying to save the marriage, about the kids, about not wanting to lose everything. "Lose what?" David asked, cutting through my excuses. "You've already lost the marriage, man. She took it, piece by piece, lie by lie. What you're trying to save is a ghost, a facade." His words hit me like a cold shower. He was right. I was clinging to an illusion. He talked about my worth, about the fact that I deserved better, that staying in this toxic environment was destroying me, and by extension hurting the kids more than a divorce ever would. He reminded me of the person I was before this, the person I could be again. "Your kids need a happy, stable dad," he said, "not a shell of a man walking on eggshells in his own home." That conversation was a turning point. It wasn't a lightning bolt, not a sudden, dramatic realization. It was slower, more like the tide gradually receding, revealing the solid ground beneath the churning water. The idea of divorce, which had been too terrifying to contemplate, began to feel less like an ending and more like a necessary escape. It was the only way to stop the bleeding, to reclaim my life, to build something real again. I started seeing a therapist, Dr. Ramirez. Her office was downtown, a quiet space high up in an office building with a view of the city skyline. Dr. Ramirez was calm, empathetic, and incredibly insightful. She helped me untangle the knots of gaslighting, validating my feelings and experiences. She explained the patterns of infidelity and manipulation, helping me see that Sarah's actions were a reflection of her own issues, not a consequence of my failings. "You didn't cause her to cheat, Ethan," she said gently but firmly during one session. "Every adult has choices. She chose this." Therapy was hard work, emotionally draining, but it was also liberating. It gave me the tools to process the trauma, to grieve the loss of the marriage, and to start rebuilding my sense of self-worth, which had been severely eroded by the constant lies and blame. I learned about setting boundaries, about recognizing manipulative behavior, and about the importance of prioritizing my own mental and emotional health. One evening, after a particularly difficult session with Dr. Ramirez, I walked into the living room where Sarah was watching TV, scrolling through her phone. The air was thick with the usual unspoken tension. I took a deep breath, the words feeling heavy but right. "Sarah," I said, my voice steady, devoid of the pleading or anger that had marked our previous conversations. "I want a divorce." She didn't look up immediately. There was a pause, and then she slowly turned her head, her expression unreadable. "Okay," she said, her voice flat. "If that's what you want." "It is," I confirmed, the weight lifting slightly from my chest. "I do want that." Her acceptance was almost anticlimactic. There were no dramatic tears, no desperate pleas to reconsider. It was as if she had been waiting for me to say it, giving her permission to fully embrace the path she had already chosen. The affair fog Dr. Ramirez had mentioned, the delusion that the affair partner was the key to ultimate happiness, was clearly thick around her. She was so eager to leave, so focused on her perceived new beginning with Mark, that she seemed oblivious to the practical realities of dismantling our life together. This eagerness, I realized, was an opportunity. David had mentioned it, and Dr. Ramirez had touched on it too, that sometimes, in their haste to escape the old life and rush into the new, the cheating partner makes mistakes, overlooks details, becomes surprisingly agreeable just to get the process over with. I decided to approach the divorce not just from an emotional standpoint, but from a strategic one. My goal was peace and stability for myself and the kids, and if her haste could facilitate that, I would leverage it. We opted for a dissolution of marriage, a process possible in Indiana when both parties agree on all the terms. It was less adversarial and less costly than a contested divorce. We sat down, surprisingly calmly, to discuss the division of assets. The house was the biggest asset. It was in a desirable neighborhood, and property values had risen. I wanted to keep it. It was the children's home, the anchor of their lives. Sarah, caught up in the fantasy of a fresh start with Mark, seemed less concerned with the financial implications of the house than with simply getting out. We agreed on a home valuation that, while fair, was slightly lower than the absolute top market value, saving me significantly on the equity buyout I had to pay her. She was so focused on getting the cash quickly to potentially buy something with Mark that she didn't push for a higher appraisal or fight over every percentage point. Our retirement accounts were also a major point of negotiation. Instead of a complex QDRO, Qualified Domestic Relations Order, to split them, which would have been standard and likely given her a significant portion of my retirement built over 18 years, we agreed to simply each keep our own accounts. Again, her focus was on immediate cash and freedom, not the long-term financial security tied up in investments. This saved me tens of thousands of dollars in the long run. Child custody was surprisingly straightforward. We both agreed on 50-50 physical and legal custody. We lived close enough that the kids could easily transition between homes, stay in the same schools, and maintain their friendships. I agreed to pay child support, calculated based on state guidelines, but I was able to negotiate a slight deviation from the standard amount, again leveraging her desire for a quick and easy agreement. There was no alimony requested or offered. Our incomes, post-divorce, would be relatively similar, though my earning potential was higher. The entire process, from the moment I asked for the divorce to the final signing of the papers, took just a few months. It was amicable, almost eerily so. A stark contrast to the emotional war zone the marriage had become. I kept the house, most of the furniture. She took only her personal belongings, a few sentimental items and one couch, and a significant portion of my financial future intact. She found an apartment not far away, a temporary stepping stone to her new life with Mark. Signing the final divorce papers was a surreal experience. I sat at a table in the lawyer's office, the pen feeling heavy in my hand. There was no triumph, no celebration, just a profound sense of finality and relief. It wasn't an ending I had ever wanted, but it was an ending I desperately needed. I had navigated the storm, not by fighting fire with fire, but by calmly charting a course towards safety and stability, using strategic thinking to protect my future and that of my children. Life after the divorce was quiet at first. The house felt both empty and full of possibility. Empty because Sarah was gone and the constant tension had dissipated. Full because it was now truly my space, a place I could rebuild, free from the shadow of betrayal. The kids transitioned relatively smoothly into the 50-50 schedule. There were tears, confusion, and questions initially, but we talked to them openly, in an age-appropriate way, explaining that sometimes adults can't live together anymore, but we both loved them very much and that would never change. We emphasized that it wasn't their fault. Dr. Lai Ramirez continued to be invaluable. Therapy sessions shifted from processing the initial trauma to focusing on rebuilding my identity, managing co-parenting dynamics, and learning to trust again. She helped me see that the gaslighting had eroded my self-esteem more than I realized, and the work of rebuilding it was ongoing. I was no longer just Sarah's husband or the betrayed spouse. I was Ethan, a father, a professional, a man with his own interests and aspirations. I started reclaiming my space, literally and figuratively. I rearranged furniture, painted a room, made the house feel like mine. I picked up woodworking again, spending hours in the garage, the rhythmic sound of sawing and sanding a soothing balm. I rejoined a local running group, enjoying the camaraderie and the physical release. I started saying yes to invitations from friends I had drifted away from during the marriage. David was a constant source of support, always ready with a listening ear or a much-needed dose of humour. Slowly, tentatively, I started dating again. It was awkward at first, navigating the landscape of online profiles and first dates after being out of the game for 20 years. There were a few false starts, some uncomfortable conversations about my past, but I approached it with honesty and a clear understanding of what I was looking for, not a replacement for Sarah, but a genuine connection based on trust and mutual respect. And then I met Clara. We met through a mutual friend at a casual get-together. She had a warm smile, kind eyes, and an easy laugh. As we talked, we discovered a surprising overlap in our life experiences. She, too, was a divorcee, her marriage having ended a few years prior due to her ex-husband's infidelity. There was an immediate, unspoken understanding between us, a shared language of pain and recovery. Talking to Clara felt effortless. There was no need to hide the messy parts of my past. She understood them intimately. We talked about the betrayal, the divorce, the challenges of co-parenting, but we also talked about hope, about rebuilding, about the lessons learned. She had walked this path before me and was further along in her healing journey. She offered support, empathy, and practical wisdom, not as a therapist but as someone who truly got it. Our relationship grew slowly, organically. We shared similar values, similar senses of humour, similar ideas about life. She was kind, independent, and had a quiet strength that I admired. She loved to cook, and we spent many evenings in my kitchen, chopping vegetables, sharing stories, the simple act of creating a meal together, feeling incredibly grounding and intimate. She was patient and thoughtful about meeting my children, and they quickly warmed to her. She didn't try to replace their mother, but became a supportive, positive adult presence in their lives. Meanwhile, glimpses of Sarah and Mark's life would occasionally surface. Our kids would mention things they'd overheard. Mutual friends would share snippets of information, usually unsolicited, sometimes with a hint of gossip, sometimes with genuine concern. Sarah and Mark had indeed bought a house together, not far from mine, within months of our divorce being finalised. It was a big step, fueled, I suspected, by the same affair fog urgency that had made the divorce amicable. Current part characters 4,000. Total characters 992. But the picture that emerged wasn't the blissful ever after Sarah had likely envisioned. Mark, it turned out, lost his job shortly after they bought the house. A sudden layoff, maybe due to industry downturns, maybe performance-related. I didn't know the details, and frankly, didn't care enough to ask. What I did know from the kids' comments about Mommy being worried about money, and the visible lack of maintenance on their new house, was that Sarah, on her salary, was struggling to carry the financial weight of the mortgage alone, even with my child support payments. I'd see them sometimes, in the grocery store or at a kids' school event, always from a distance. Sarah often looked stressed, her smile tight. Mark usually looked uncomfortable, avoiding eye contact with anyone who might know the story. The first time I'd actually had to interact with him briefly at a school function, I'd walked up, extended my hand, and introduced myself calmly. "Mark, I'm Ethan, Sarah's ex-husband. I know who you are." He'd gone pale and couldn't meet my gaze. It wasn't about revenge. It was about acknowledging the reality, stripping away any pretense. After that, he seemed to actively avoid being in the same space as me. My friends, David included, had largely sided with me, not because I asked them to, but because I had been open and honest about what happened. Sarah's attempts to control the narrative or blame me fell flat when confronted with the truth. Her social circle shifted, shrinking to accommodate her new relationship and the awkwardness it created with longtime friends who knew both of us. The contrast between our lives was becoming increasingly apparent, not through any effort of mine, but simply through the natural consequences of our choices. I had chosen the difficult path of confronting the truth, enduring the pain, seeking help, and rebuilding my life on a foundation of honesty and self-respect. She had chosen the path of deceit, escape, and building a new life on the shaky ground of an affair. My life, while not without its challenges, co-parenting had its moments, and dating as a single dad wasn't always easy, was stable, peaceful, and filled with genuine connection. Hers, from the outside looking in, appeared strained, financially precarious, and built on a foundation that seemed inherently unstable. I didn't gloat. There was no joy in seeing her struggle, only a quiet, reflective satisfaction that I had made the right choice for myself and my children. Their well-being was paramount, and they were thriving. They had adjusted remarkably well to the split. They saw that both their parents were now living in less tense environments, and while they missed the idea of a single family unit, they seemed to appreciate the peace in both homes. My home, in particular, felt like a sanctuary of calm and predictability for them, a stark contrast, I suspected, to the potential stress and instability they might encounter at Sarah's. Liam, at 10, was old enough to understand more of the dynamics, though I kept the details age-appropriate. He saw the difference in my demeanour, the return of my energy and humour. Chloe, 7, was more focused on routine and feeling safe. They both seemed to relax more when they were with me, often mentioning how much they liked the quiet evenings at my house, or how much fun they had doing things with me that we hadn't done in years. They adored Clara, who was patient, kind, and genuinely interested in their lives. Watching them interact, seeing their easy smiles when she was around, was a profound source of happiness for me. I still paid child support, and yes, it stung a little, especially knowing her financial situation with Mark. But I had negotiated it down significantly from the state guidelines, and I viewed it as my responsibility to my children, not a payment to Sarah. The financial terms of the divorce, secured during her affair fog, had indeed set me up well. Keeping the house meant continuity for the kids and avoiding the stress and expense of moving. The favourable asset division meant I wasn't starting over from scratch financially. It was a testament to the fact that sometimes, in the face of emotional chaos, a clear, strategic mind can make all the difference. Looking back now, from a place of peace and contentment, the journey seems almost unbelievable. The depth of the pain, the confusion, the feeling that my life was over, it was all real. But so too was the resilience I found, the strength I didn't know I possessed, the capacity to rebuild and find happiness again. Therapy was essential. My friends were essential. Choosing to focus on myself and my children's well-being rather than getting caught up in blame or revenge was essential. The message I would share with anyone going through this is simple, but hard to hear in the depths of despair. You can survive this. You can heal. You can find happiness again. It won't be the same happiness you envisioned within the marriage, but it can be deeper, more authentic, built on a foundation of self-knowledge and resilience. You have to let go of the person who betrayed you. They are on their own path, dealing with their own issues, and their choices should no longer dictate your emotional state or your future. It's like pruning a plant. You have to cut away the dead branches, no matter how attached you were to them, so that the rest of the plant can thrive. The marriage, as you knew it, is dead. The person you thought you married may not have existed for a long time, if ever. You have to mourn that loss, acknowledge the pain, and then consciously, deliberately choose to move forward. Don't be afraid to seek help. A good therapist can be a lifeline, helping you process the trauma and giving you tools to heal. Don't isolate yourself. Lean on your friends and family. The right people will support you unconditionally. And don't be afraid to be strategic in the divorce process. It's not about being vindictive. It's about protecting your future and your children's stability. If your ex is in the affair fog and eager to get out, understand that this is a temporary state that you can potentially leverage for a more favorable outcome. Rebuilding takes time and effort. It involves rediscovering who you are outside of the marriage, finding joy in simple things, and slowly, cautiously opening yourself up to new possibilities, including new relationships. But it is possible. The pain fades, the scars remain, but they become reminders of your strength, not your weakness. I remember one evening, months after the divorce was final, sitting on my back porch as the sun set over the suburban rooftops. The air was warm, smelling of freshly cut grass. Liam and Chloe were inside, their laughter drifting out through the screen door. Clara was coming over later for dinner. I had just finished a run, the endorphins humming in my veins. For the first time in years, I felt completely, utterly at peace. The house, once a symbol of my broken life, now felt like a sanctuary, a place of safety and warmth. I thought about Sarah and Mark, somewhere in their new house down the street, navigating their own reality. I felt no anger, no resentment, just a quiet detachment. Their struggles were not my problem anymore. My focus was on the life I was building, the happiness I had found, the peace I had fought so hard for. The journey was long and arduous. There were days when the grief was overwhelming, days when the anger simmered just beneath the surface. There were moments of doubt, wondering if I had made the right decision, if the kids would be okay. But every step forward, no matter how small, was a victory. Every moment of genuine happiness, every shared laugh with my children or with Clara, was a confirmation that life does indeed go on, and it can be beautiful again. The house itself became a symbol of my reclaiming my life. I spent weekends working on it, small projects that gave me a sense of accomplishment, fixing the squeaky stair, painting the living room a new colour, planting flowers in the front yard. Each task was a metaphor for rebuilding, for tending to something that had been neglected. The physical act of improving my surroundings mirrored the internal work I was doing. Co-parenting with Sarah was functional, mostly. We communicated primarily through text or email, keeping interactions brief and focused solely on the children's logistics. There was no lingering friendship, no casual chats. It was a business arrangement for the sake of our kids, and that boundary was necessary for my peace of mind. There were occasional disagreements about schedules or minor issues, but we managed to resolve them without major conflict, largely because I refused to engage in the old patterns of gaslighting or emotional manipulation. I stayed calm, stated the facts, and stuck to what was best for the children. I learned to appreciate the rhythm of 50-50 custody. The weeks the kids were with me were full of energy, noise, and the beautiful chaos of family life. The weeks they were with Sarah were quieter, offering me time for myself, time to work, to exercise, to see friends, to nurture my relationship with Clara, to simply be alone with my thoughts without the weight of marital tension. I missed them terribly when they were gone, of course, but I also learned to value that time for personal growth and recharging. It was a different kind of family life than I had envisioned, but it was a healthy one. Clara's presence in my life was a profound blessing. She understood the nuances of healing from infidelity in a way that someone who hadn't experienced it couldn't. We could talk openly about trust, about the fear of being hurt again, about the importance of clear communication. She was patient with my occasional moments of vulnerability or lingering insecurity. Building a relationship with her felt safe and honest, a stark contrast to the secrecy and manipulation that had defined the end of my marriage. We weren't rushing into anything, taking things one day at a time, focusing on building a strong foundation of friendship and mutual respect. Introducing Clara to Liam and Chloe was a gradual process. We started with casual, brief encounters, allowing them to get comfortable at their own pace. Clara was wonderful with them, engaging them in their interests, listening patiently, and showing genuine warmth. Seeing my children happy and comfortable around her was incredibly important to me. It wasn't about replacing their mother, but about adding another loving adult to their support system. I also made an effort to strengthen my relationships with other family members and friends. My parents, who had been worried about me, were relieved to see me finding my feet again. My sister helped me sort through some of the emotional clutter. David remained my rock, always ready to grab a beer or offer a listening ear. These relationships, nurtured and prioritized, formed a crucial safety net. Observing Sarah and Mark's situation continued, mostly through peripheral vision. I saw Mark's car parked in their driveway day after day, suggesting his unemployment was ongoing. I saw the for sale sign go up in their yard less than 2 years after they bought the house, a clear indication that the financial strain was too much. They eventually sold it, likely at a loss given the short time frame and market conditions, and moved into a smaller rental further away. There was no dramatic downfall, just the quiet, grinding reality of poor choices catching up. It wasn't a source of malicious joy for me. It was more a confirmation that the foundation of their relationship, built on deceit and escape, was inherently unstable. My own life, built on the rubble of that old foundation, was now solid, stable, and growing. That was the true victory. Dr. Ramirez helped me process the lingering feelings about Sarah, the anger, the sadness, the confusion. She helped me understand that her actions were not about me, but about her own unresolved issues, her own brokenness, and that I couldn't fix her, and it wasn't my responsibility to try. My responsibility was to myself and my children. Letting go of the need to understand her or to see her change was crucial for my own peace. The concept of the affair fog wasn't just about her initial eagerness to leave. It was a state of mind, a temporary delusion that often dissolves when faced with the mundane realities of life. When the excitement of the affair wears off and the hard work of building a real life together begins, the cracks often appear. And in Sarah and Mark's case, the cracks seem to have appeared relatively quickly. My life now is full, but not chaotic. It's peaceful, but not boring. I have a fulfilling job, wonderful children, a loving partner, and a strong support system. I have time for my hobbies, for travel, for simply relaxing. I make decisions based on what is best for me and my children, without the constant second-guessing or the need to navigate someone else's secrets and manipulations. The house, the same house where I discovered the betrayal, is now filled with new memories. The smell of Clara's cooking, the sound of the kids laughing during movie nights, the quiet satisfaction of a finished woodworking project in the garage. It is no longer haunted by the past. It is alive with the present and the promise of the future. I think about the man I was 5 years ago, on the day I found those emails. Broken, terrified, unsure if I would ever feel whole again. The journey from that moment to this has been long and difficult, marked by pain, grief, and hard work. But it has also been a journey of incredible growth, resilience, and ultimately, profound happiness. The advice I would give to anyone standing where I stood that day, phone trembling in hand, world collapsing. 1. It is not your fault. No matter what they say, no matter how much they try to blame you, their choice to cheat is a reflection of their character, not yours. 2. Get help. A good therapist is invaluable in processing the trauma and navigating the emotional fallout. Find one who specializes in infidelity and trauma. 3. Build your support system. Lean on trusted friends and family. Don't hide what happened. Shame belongs to the cheater, not the betrayed. 4. Prioritize yourself. Your well-being is paramount. You cannot help your children or anyone else if you are drowning. 5. Consider the strategic divorce. While emotions are high, try to approach the legal process with a clear head. Consult an attorney. Understand your rights and options. If your ex is eager to leave, this can be an opportunity to secure a more favorable outcome for yourself and your children's stability. It's not about revenge, it's about protecting your future. 6. Let go. You have to release the anger, the resentment, and the hope that they will change or realize what they lost. Their path is separate from yours now. Focus on rebuilding your own life, not observing or reacting to theirs. 7. Rebuild your identity. Rediscover who you are outside of the marriage. Find joy in hobbies, friendships, and new experiences. 8. Be patient with yourself. Healing is not linear. There will be good days and bad days. Allow yourself to feel the emotions, but don't let them consume you. 9. Hope exists on the other side. It may seem impossible now, but happiness is achievable. A life built on authenticity and self-respect is far more fulfilling than one built on lies. My life is a testament to that hope. The pain of the betrayal will always be a part of my story, a chapter I wish I could tear out, but it is just one chapter. The rest of the book is still being written, and it is a story of resilience, recovery, and a happiness that feels more real, more earned than anything I knew before. I am Ethan, divorced, healed, and thriving, and that is a powerful thing to be. I remember sitting with Dr. Ramirez one day, talking about how far I had come. You know, I said, for so long, I felt like I was just reacting to what Sarah did, like my life was defined by her actions. Dr. Ramirez smiled gently. And now? Now, I said, looking out the window at the Indianapolis skyline, my life is defined by my choices, by the choices I made to leave, to heal, to rebuild, by the choice to be happy. It was a profound realization. The power had shifted, not in a vengeful way, but in an empowering one. I had taken back control of my own narrative. The children continued to adjust beautifully. Liam was excelling in school, finding new interests in robotics. Chloe was still my little artist, filling notebook after notebook with drawings. They had friends in the neighborhood, participated in sports and activities, and seemed remarkably well adjusted despite the seismic shift in their family structure. I made sure to be present and engaged during my time with them, focusing on creating a stable, loving environment. We had movie nights, board game tournaments, trips to the local park, and weekend adventures. Their happiness was my greatest reward. Clara and I continued to build our relationship. We took a weekend trip to Brown County State Park in southern Indiana, hiking through the beautiful fall foliage, talking for hours, simply enjoying each other's company. It was a simple getaway, but it felt incredibly freeing, a symbol of the freedom I had gained to travel and experience life without the constraints of a toxic marriage. Our relationship was characterized by open communication, mutual support, and a shared appreciation for the peace and stability we had both found after difficult times. We talked about the future, cautiously, optimistically, but always grounded in the present, appreciating the journey we were on together. Seeing Sarah and Mark's struggle from a distance wasn't about schadenfreude. It was a quiet confirmation of a truth I had learned. You cannot build a stable future on a foundation of lies and betrayal. The new beginning they sought was built on the wreckage of my marriage, and it seemed destined to crumble under the weight of reality. My own foundation, built slowly and painfully on the bedrock of honesty, self-respect, and hard-won peace, felt unshakable. I still paid child support, but it felt less like a burden and more like a contribution to my children's well-being, which was the ultimate goal. The financial security I had managed to protect during the divorce meant I could provide a comfortable and stable home for them, ensuring their lives were as minimally disrupted as possible. The strategic decisions made during the affair fog had truly paid off, not just financially, but in reducing long-term conflict and stress. I continued to see Dr. Ramirez periodically, for tune-ups and to process new challenges as they arose, like navigating the complexities of blending families down the line. Therapy wasn't a cure-all, but an ongoing tool for maintaining emotional health and self-awareness. My friends remained a vital part of my life. David and I still talked regularly, his pragmatic perspective often helping me keep things in proportion. We laughed about the absurdity of dating in our 40s, shared stories about our kids, and reminisced about college days. These connections reinforced my sense of belonging and reminded me of the person I was before the marriage crisis. One evening I was out to dinner with Clara at a restaurant downtown. We were laughing, sharing a bottle of wine, completely relaxed. Across the room I saw Sarah and Mark. They were seated at a table near the back, looking tired. There was no spark between them that I could see, just the quiet tension of a couple perhaps held together more by circumstance than by genuine happiness. They didn't see me. I felt a brief pang, not of sadness for them, but of empathy for the difficult path they seemed to be on. Then I turned back to Clara, to our conversation, to the warmth and connection we shared, and the moment passed. My life was here, now, vibrant and full of light. The journey from betrayal to peace is not a straight line. There are detours, setbacks, moments when the old pain resurfaces. But if you keep putting one foot in front of the other, if you prioritize your healing and your well-being, if you surround yourself with supportive people and seek the help you need, you can emerge from the darkness stronger, wiser, and happier than you ever thought possible. My story is just one example, one path through the wreckage of infidelity and divorce. Everyone's journey is unique, but the core principles remain the same. Acknowledge the pain, reject the blame, seek support, make strategic choices for your future, and commit to rebuilding your life, piece by piece. It is a marathon, not a sprint, but the finish line is worth every step. It's a finish line marked by peace, authenticity, and the quiet joy of living a life that is truly and unapologetically your own. I learned that forgiveness wasn't about excusing Sarah's actions. It was about releasing myself from the burden of anger and resentment. It was about accepting what happened and choosing not to let it define me forever. It was a process that took time, aided by therapy and the passage of time. It wasn't about reconciliation, it was about internal liberation. The children's perspective on the divorce evolved over time. Initially there was sadness and confusion, as expected, But as they saw both Sarah and me settle into separate, more peaceful routines, and as they experienced the stability and happiness in my home, they seemed to understand, on a deeper level, that this was a better arrangement than the tense, unhappy environment that had existed before. They saw me happy. They saw Clara's positive influence, and they saw that their needs were being met in both households. While they might occasionally express a wish that things were like they used to be, they also acknowledged that things were calmer now. Liam, being older, sometimes asked more pointed questions about why things happened the way they did. I answered honestly, but without excessive detail or negativity about Sarah. I focused on explaining that adults sometimes make mistakes and that relationships don't always work out, but that my love for them was unconditional and unchanging. I emphasized that the divorce was a decision made by adults and had nothing to do with anything they did or didn't do. Chloe, with her younger age, was more focused on the practicalities, whose house they were sleeping at on a given night, where their favorite toys were. My consistency in the 50-50 schedule and creating a warm, stable environment for her was key to her adjustment. She seemed particularly fond of the quiet evenings at my house, reading books together or drawing at the kitchen table, activities that had been difficult to enjoy amidst the tension of the old marriage. Integrating Clara into their lives was done with care and patience. We didn't rush it. She was introduced first as a friend, then gradually spent more time with us during casual activities. Clara was naturally warm and engaging with them, never trying to overstep boundaries or replace their mother. She became a trusted and loved figure in their lives, another source of support and affection. Seeing my children bond with Clara was a source of immense joy and reinforced my belief that finding a healthy, loving relationship after divorce was not only possible but could also enrich my children's lives. The financial aspect of the divorce, while initially a source of anxiety, became a point of quiet satisfaction. The strategic decisions I made during Sarah's affair fog meant I wasn't burdened by excessive debt or forced to sell the family home. Keeping the house provided continuity for the children and a sense of stability for me. Negotiating the asset division and child support favorably meant I had the financial resources to rebuild my life comfortably and provide for my children's needs without constant struggle. It was a practical outcome of making clear-headed decisions in an emotionally charged situation. I often reflected on the advice I had received from David and Dr. Ramirez. The importance of focusing on myself, of not getting caught up in the ex's drama, of building a new life rather than dwelling on the old one. Their guidance had been invaluable. It's easy to get stuck in the cycle of pain, anger, and resentment after betrayal. It takes conscious effort and support to break free. My weekends with the kids were precious. We established new traditions: Saturday morning pancake breakfasts, bike rides on the Monon Trail, trips to the Indianapolis Zoo or the Children's Museum. These moments, simple as they were building blocks of our new family life, creating positive memories that would eventually overshadow the difficult times. When the kids were at Sarah's, I focused on nurturing my relationship with Clara and pursuing my own interests. We explored Indianapolis together, trying new restaurants, visiting art galleries, attending concerts. We also enjoyed quiet evenings at home, cooking together, talking, simply enjoying the peace and intimacy of our connection. Clara understood the demands of co-parenting and was supportive and flexible with my schedule. Her own experience with divorce and infidelity meant she approached our relationship with a maturity and understanding that was incredibly refreshing. We talked about the future, not in terms of rushing into marriage or blending families overnight, but in terms of shared goals and dreams. We both valued honesty, trust, and open communication, the cornerstones of a healthy relationship, especially after experiencing the devastating impact of their absence. The for sale sign eventually came down from Sarah and Mark's house. They moved, as I mentioned, to a rental further away. I didn't dwell on it. It was just another piece of information, confirming that their path was separate from mine. My focus remained on my own life, my own happiness, my own journey. I continued to see glimpses of Sarah at school events or kids' activities, but interactions were minimal and polite, focused solely on the children. The emotional intensity that once existed between us was gone, replaced by a polite, functional distance. It was the healthiest way forward for everyone, especially the kids. The process of healing from infidelity and divorce is not a race. There is no set timeline. It involves grieving, processing trauma, making difficult decisions, and actively, consciously rebuilding your life. It requires courage, resilience, and a willingness to be vulnerable and seek help. But the outcome, a life of authenticity, peace, and genuine happiness, is worth every struggle. My story is proof that betrayal is not the end. It is a devastating turning point, yes, but it can also be the catalyst for building a life that is stronger, more fulfilling, and more aligned with who you truly are. I remember one conversation with Clara early in our relationship where we talked about trust. It was a difficult topic for both of us, given our pasts. We agreed that trust isn't something that is simply given. It is built, brick by painstaking brick, through consistent honesty, reliability, and open communication. It was a conscious choice we were making, together, to build a relationship on a solid foundation, and that felt profoundly healing. My children's well-being remained my compass. Every decision I made, from the strategic approach to the divorce to the careful introduction of Clara into their lives, was guided by what I believed was best for them. Seeing them happy, secure, and thriving in their new reality was the most important validation of the path I had chosen. I learned to forgive myself, too. Forgiveness for the things I might have missed, the signs I might have ignored, the ways I might have been complacent in the marriage. Dr. Ramirez helped me understand that I wasn't responsible for Sarah's choices, and blaming myself was just another form of self-punishment that served no purpose. Letting go of self-blame was as crucial as letting go of anger towards Sarah. Life in Indianapolis continued its rhythm. The seasons changed, the kids grew, and my life settled into a new normal. A normal that was quieter than the chaos of the end of my marriage, but infinitely more peaceful and fulfilling. I had reclaimed my home, my finances, my emotional well-being, and my future. My journey from betrayal to peace was complete. Not in the sense that the past was erased, but in the sense that I had fully integrated the experience, learned from it, and used it as a catalyst for profound personal growth. The scars remained, but they were no longer open wounds. They were reminders of a battle fought and won, a testament to resilience. I am happy, truly and deeply happy. Not because everything is perfect, but because I have found peace within myself, built a life based on honesty and genuine connection, and surrounded myself with love. The betrayal was a devastating event, but it did not break me. It changed me, yes, but it also made me stronger, more self-aware, and more appreciative of the simple, profound beauty of a life lived with authenticity and peace. To anyone out there hurting from infidelity, feeling lost and alone, there is hope. There is a path forward. It is difficult, it requires courage, but you can find your way to the other side. You can heal, you can rebuild, you can thrive. Take it one day at a time. Seek help. Lean on your support system. Make choices that are right for you. And believe that happiness is waiting for you. It's not waiting for you in the past or in trying to fix someone else. It's waiting for you within yourself, and in the future you build, brick by painstaking brick, on a foundation of truth and self-respect.